I'm here today with my good friend Erin Taylor. Erin and I met in 2012, in August of 2012, I think. Well, probably before that. You would have called me before that to let
With
me
the
know.
interview.
That's right. So we did the interview. Here's what I remember, Erin. I remember you calling and saying,
Never goes well for me.
I
You
remember
recall
you,
how you met me.
I remember you saying something along the lines, and I don't remember exactly, but you're really from Panama. And I said, yeah. And you said, well, I grew up in the country of Panama. So this was awkward when I guess you had read that I was in Panama, Oklahoma, which
I'd never heard of it.
yeah,
Yeah.
it truly exists. So, but yeah, that's what I remember about us meeting our first conversation. I don't remember the questions you asked.
Can I tell you what I remember about you?
Sure.
I remember running up and down the hall of my office saying, I got a man! I got a man! Because, getting men and fathers, especially into partners, is really difficult. And it was even more unique with you because your wife, Jennifer, hadn't gone through yet.
Yeah, and she still hasn't gone through, and we're still discussing that. So,
Yeah.
I'm trying to get her in. So that's how we met, and then I remember meeting in person through Partners in Policymaking. So let me go back and tell everybody that Erin is the Adult Advocacy and Training Coordinator for the Developmental Disabilities Council of Oklahoma. Did I
And
know?
I also have a new job title, which is Public Policy Coordinator.
Okay. You can explain that here in just a minute, but the part that that is probably most important to me, at least, is that you do coordinate the Partners in Policymaking program.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to get into that here in just a little bit, because I've said this several times. It changed my life. I mean, it really did. And you, Diane, and Anne, and of course Jen, that were all instrumental in basically getting me to where I'm at today. So for that, let me start by thanking you for that. You guys are amazing.
Well,
Let's
guys
talk.
this is the best job I've ever had, is getting to work with you guys.
Yeah, I agree. To be an advocate, I said for years, this is what I want to do for a living, and people laughed at me. Like, yeah, that's gonna, and it happened. You got to make things happen. So let's start with, tell your story. Why? I mean, besides being all of those titles, you are also a mom extraordinaire. Depends on who you ask, right?
Yeah, I'm letting my child repair my roof right now in the house, so I know about that.
Advocate extraordinaire. The things that you've done to help people in Oklahoma with disabilities truly amazes me constantly. So I appreciate that. How did you get started? What's your story?
So I was getting my PhD at OU in international higher education. I was doing research on Iraq, which, as you'll see, is no way related to what I do for a living now. And quite honestly, I had two children then, Gwen and Ian, and quite honestly, I had to take a statistics class, and I was terrified of it. So instead, I decided I would just get pregnant and have a third child. But instead of taking on that kind of math, I would just raise a child for 18 years. And I got pregnant with Henry, and we knew at 18 weeks that Henry had a very significant congenital heart defect. And Henry was born in May of 2002, which means he's 18 now. He was born in May of 2002, and within the first 5 years of his life, he had 8 open heart surgeries and a heart transplant. And as a result of his heart defect and the fact that he had heart attacks and strokes, and he had surgeries and long periods where he didn't have enough oxygen, he also incurred a dual hemisphere brain injury. Well, I wasn't prepared. I was, I had a degree in education. I had taught in high school. I taught at college and all that, but I really didn't know about people with disabilities, certainly not students with disabilities. And to be honest, I really didn't feel like I needed to. I was like, certainly there's some special teachers over there in the special room back there for those people. But the truth is Henry had a really significant intellectual disability, and he was going to need supports all of his life. And what he really needed was a competent mother, and I didn't feel competent. Well, I had a girlfriend who also had a child that had a heart defect, and she had gone through partners. And she said to me once, she said, advocate for your child because you owe that to them. Go easy on yourself because you owe that to yourself. And that really kind of motivated me. And so I got involved in partners in 2010, because I think I was 2 years before you. Took the class, was amazed at how little I didn't know. And at the end of the year, the coordinator position came open, and the executive director at that time, Ann Trudgeon, approached me about it. Diana really, really urged me to take it. And because Diana was getting ready to retire, the point was that I would eventually step into her role. And that's how I came to it. And I've been here now, all these years, a decade.
So yeah, I was one of the first. I graduated 2013, and I think I was your second class, maybe your first. Yeah.
I think you were my second class. Yeah. Where did you take class? Were you in the armory?
No.
Okay, my second class.
Yeah, we were at the
Senior league.
Yeah, there you go. So this is going to be the fun part. Tell me about Henry. I love Henry stories. I check out Facebook constantly because Henry stories make my day. So what's Henry like?
So Henry is wickedly funny. He's sort of like a cranky old man, the way he talks about things and his interest in the world and things of that nature. He has a lot of medical stuff in his life. He gets his medical care out of state, and the kid loves a heart surgery or a heart procedure. He loves to have a blood test. That all is really interesting to him. Has no interest in friends or going anywhere. And he's probably the funniest thing we've got going in our family. Right now, we've had to turn off the Dish Network for 2 days because they're making a repair on our roof. And Henry is just walking around the house saying, it's the worst year of my life with the corona and no Dish TV. And how will I go on? And I'm like, suck it up. You'll be fine.
He has a huge love for Muppets, right?
Huge love for the Muppets.
Yeah.
Also Goosebumps.
Okay.
So
I like it. The Muppet stories are kind of fun. He loves food.
He is kind of a foodie. He everybody in our family is a foodie, quite honestly, but he loves, Thai food, makes him very, very happy. He's never passed up a cheeseburger in his life. Matter of fact, he had his heart transplant when he was 5. And when he came out of that 11-hour surgery, I was a little stressed, as you can imagine. And I went into the room to see him, and within a few hours, they took him off the ventilator, which was very rare for Henry. Henry usually really struggled to get off the ventilator, but this time he just sailed off it. And I got down next to his sweet pink face, and I looked at him, and I knew in this moment he was going to just stare meaningfully in my eyes and say, thank you, Mother, for making this sacrifice. You've taken me to 3 states to get this surgery. Thank you. I love you. And instead, he turned to me, and his first words were, cheeseburger.
Hey.
Yeah. Which is just what the cardiologist ordered, was for him to immediately have a cheeseburger.
Sure. Double with bacon, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So, through the years, tell us about partners in policymaking. I know about it. I've been through it, and I swear to this, Erin, every interview that I've had so far, I've mentioned partners at least once. Everyone, you're number 20, by the way, and so not only because of what it's done to me, but most of the people that I interview have been through it, and so. Tell me what partners in policymaking is for people that don't know.
So partners in policymaking has existed in Oklahoma for 30 years, but it's truthfully a national program. I think it's in 28 states now, as well as 9 different nations. If I could get the partners gig in like Tahiti or something, that would be great. Partners is really a leadership academy / boot camp. So we interview people. They may be a parent, they could be a family member, they could be a self-advocate, which is a person with a disability. In some cases, a professional who's in the field. And it's pretty competitive to get in. We turn away about half of our applicants each year just because we don't have the space. And you attend for 8 weekends in a row. You attend all day Saturday. You attend from 9 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. and then from 9 to 2 on Sunday. And you interact with the nation's very best speakers on developmental disabilities. It's not about listening to me or Ann or Jen. It's about listening to Patrick Schwartz and Al Condalucci and Kathy Snow and Beth Smith and all of them, who really are going to give you some innovative concepts about what it means to have a disability, what we think disability is and isn't, and all that. And part of the partners process, which is hard, and the people it's hardest on are parents, is that you're going to get pushed a little emotionally. We're going to challenge your mindset, your beliefs. We're going to say, is there a better way to do this? We're going to ask you, are you doing truly what's best for your child's future? And so it's a big year. It's a big year for our students. We usually have about 32 when we start, and we usually graduate about 20. And the reason that people often don't graduate is they don't attend class regularly, or they don't get the assignments done. And when I say assignments, listen, this isn't graduate school. This is maybe 2 or 3 hours of work a month. But we ask that people make those commitments because we know that work is very valuable.
So here's what I remember for partners. You came to me. This is what you were talking about, pushing. You also pushed to think outside of I wouldn't say outside the box, but outside of your own self. I mean,
Right.
because here's, and you'll remember this, I'm sure. I came in autism world, because that's what I lived with every day. And I remember you coming to me at one point and pulling me to the side and saying, there are more disabilities than autism out there. And it wasn't a rude thing. It was you saying, think outside. If you're going to be an advocate for all disabilities, not just that. And that's the first time I thought about that, because the only thing I thought was, but what's best for Connor. When I broke that down and I realized what you're saying, you were saying all disabilities need similar things. IEPs, we need services, so think outside, because as you know, and a lot of people in disability advocacy, if we help one person, we actually help a lot of other people.
Well, and I'm not here to raise parent advocates. I'm here to raise disability advocates, people who are going to fight for civil rights. And everybody has civil rights. Everybody has human rights. So that's one of the things we kind of try to ferret out in the interview process, is if you're just here for your kid, or you just have an axe to grind, this is probably not the year for you.
Yeah. Here's some of the things that I really appreciated about partners too. You talked about the things that we learned about the history behind disabilities and disability advocacy in law and ADA. eye-opening, scary at times, but to me it was something that said, holy crap, look at where we've come.
Right.
um, and between the Hisson and the um, Willowbrooks, and those things that Connor came to me the other day. I think you may appreciate this, Erin. Came to me the other day and he said, a long time ago, did they take people with autism and did they really kill them? And I said, well, yeah, actually, I guess they kind of did, or they locked them away. And he said, so I could have been locked away. And I said,
I just hate that a child has to know that about their being. Yeah.
yeah. Uh, but it's to me, it's almost him realizing maybe some self-advocacy, starting some self-advocacy and thinking what could have been. And you taught us to appreciate the things that had happened before.
Well,
And
I'm a historian by training. That's why I went to college 58,000 years ago. And it really bothered me that I didn't know things that, for example, Thomas Jefferson had 2 siblings with developmental disabilities, that one of the signers of the Declaration of Independence had a form of palsy. Why do we not know this? Why is it when we study Black activism or the women's rights movement or labor rights movements or anything like that, disability should also be included as one of the great civil rights movements in our country? And so it just really bothered me that I had managed to get advanced degrees in history and not know these things. And so it really bothered me that I didn't know that, even though I had degrees in history and all of that stuff. So I wanted to impart upon you guys that disability has always existed, but it's existed in different ways. What it meant to be disabled in colonial America is very different than our perception of disability now. And that truthfully, there were times in American history where we were much, much more humane to people with disabilities than we were in the last century. It's not always a march towards progress, and we need to recognize that. And we see scary moments currently where there's maybe a financial incentive to develop institutions again and things of that nature that we need to be concerned about.
yeah, and when you think about some of the things that have developed, when we were just talking about ADA, that's only 30 years old.
Right. When I was in college, I went to Texas A&M for my undergraduate degree, and my roommate's job was to go around campus in 1993 and 1994 and identify all the buildings that were going to have to be fixed. And I remember thinking, gosh, that's a pain in the butt. That's going to be really expensive. That's going to take forever, because I didn't value it. And I don't need those accommodations now often, but those accommodations are universal. At some point, I probably will. And everyone in our communities should have access, whether it's visual access or hearing access or ramp access, parking access, speech access. We all deserve it.
I agree. So we talk about some of the people that you just that come to the partners that do the presenters. Sorry. When we talk about those, some of the people that stand out to me, Alcon Lucy. I always respected, because he's the one that talks about community, and I think that's eye-opening. Patrick Schwartz, I think it's most people's favorite. I know it was mine only because he's so energetic, he's so fun, but he also makes you think anybody can be a part of society if they're given the right tools, the right services. Anybody, and
the moment I always remember with Patrick, and it was one of those painful moments for me, is that he was talking about the real limitations a child has if they have the diagnosis, they have a disability as an attribute, as he would say. And I was thinking about what the limitations were on Henry. And Henry was probably 8 years old at that time. And I realized the biggest limitation in Henry's life at that point was his mother. That I was the one going around announcing he couldn't do things. That anytime he walked into any situation, I'm like, this is Henry, he's post cardiac transplant, hypoplastic left heart syndrome, dual hemisphere brain injury. I'm like, wow, that's warm. You know, I had to get out of his way, and I had to push him and focus a little less on the limits, because all of my fears that I had for Henry, this is just my situation, but all the fears I had for Henry, none of them came true. Henry was never bullied. Henry was put in an isolated school setting one time, and they so deeply regretted having to interact with me as a result of that. It never happened again. So, you know, there's a difference. This is hard for some parents to learn, but there's a difference between being your child's advocate and being your child's henchman. And your kid's not going to make friends, and your kid's not going to have true independence and security if mom's always in the background kind of bullying her way through things.
Yeah, how often do we see that parents are enablers?
And when I hear a parent say, I made them stay in that IEP for 10 hours, I'm like, that's nothing to be proud of. That proves that you're not an effective communicator.
Yeah, you're not willing to negotiate, and yeah,
Right.
absolutely. So,
and if you raise a child who believes they never have to negotiate, no one wants to be around that kid. He's going to be a jackass.
Yeah. Tell me about your mentors. Who are some of the people that you know led you along the way?
You know, I have some mentors that I have from my before life, when I worked in like international aid and international education and all that, you know, professors and things like that. And then, you know, obviously Diana's my Gandhi. You know, I can almost not talk about her without crying. You know, the great story about Diana is that she had this beautiful son named David, and David had been institutionalized, and then she got him out of the institution, and he had a great adulthood, and he was dating and in his own apartment and all that stuff. And then David got pancreatic cancer and died in, I think it was right before his 30th birthday. And Diana shares his story with the students, and it's, oh, I mean, you know it. It's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking. And once I fully took over Diana's role, she came to me one day and she said, so Diana came to me one day and she said, you know, there's a story I tell in class where David, while he was at Hisson, the institution, the kids made Christmas ornaments that year in the institution. And they sent it home with David over Christmas, except it wasn't David's ornament. When I turned it over, it had the name Connie on it. And I realized that some girl named Connie probably had David's ornament. And that's, you know, one of the hazards of institutional life is kind of people lose their identity and they get shuffled around and forgotten and all that. And so I committed that I was going to save Connie's ornament and hang it every year, because I would hope that they were hanging David's. And then she gave me the ornament to keep when I took on her job. Exactly. And that ornament hangs at my front door of my office. And when I'm going out and going to have a big day, when I'm going to, you know, speak at a conference or go deal with a legislator that I don't know if it's going to go well, or, you know, teach a big class, I always touch that. That's my touchstone. It's a little bit of David, a little bit of Connie, and hopefully nobody gets forgotten.
Wow. Yeah, well, so each year there's a day, I don't know if you guys still do this, but I'm pretty sure you do. There's a day where Diana shares her story, you share your story, and tears just flow. And that's definitely eye-opening. I had her on, as you know, and she told the story about David, which is still, um, while tragic, it's still amazing as far as,
But you and I are David's age. That could
yeah,
have been,
yeah, yeah, no,
if Connor hadn't been your son, but instead of been your sibling, that would have been him.
yeah, yeah,
And we are not that far away from that. We are not.
yeah. So those are the things that stick with me, through partners, those stories, and then of course the advocacy, and then, as I always tell people, that the networking is to me, that was the most important part, is to get out there and meet people, whether they're classmates. I still get to see some of my classmates, Ellen Hefner, Sam Jenkins, some of these people that I still, keep up with and talk to, but
That
also the advocates. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say that's an activity we do in class, and I don't think we did while you were there. And that is, you asked me who my mentors were, and we go through this activity called mentors, experts, and allies, because we believe people should have all three. So Diana's my mentor because she's really in charge of my emotional growth and my spiritual growth, and who I'm called to be in this role. But people like Angela Donnelly are my ally, because I know I can call Angela Donnelly and be like, okay, we are going to be at the Capitol trying to hustle on this bill. Can you come up and show? And she will come up and she will do the work. And we have the same goal and the same vision and all that. And then you have experts. And experts are maybe somebody that they don't really have an emotional connection to you of any sort, but they have some very valuable information you need. So the other day, I was talking to a representative, a state representative, about guardianship. And he gave me some insight that I didn't know about how guardianship works in our state statute. So it's really important that we not only have mentors, but that we know these other roles of ally, an expert, and that you kind of keep those lanes straight.
That's good advice. Yeah. When I think of mentors, I think mentors are also people that will tell you straight. I think of you,
Yeah.
Wanda, the people that say, look, I like where you're going with this, but have you thought about this? Maybe that's not the way to go. And you give that constructive criticism, as opposed to just blowing smoke and saying, oh yeah, you're right. You're great.
Well, I would say that like Wanda and Roseanne Duplan definitely started out as sort of like mentors and experts to me. And now they're allies. We work on the waiting list caucus together, and we work on, some federal issues together and all that stuff. And so those roles can evolve and change.
Yeah. I don't know why, but Wanda has taken me under her wing since the beginning. I think it's that LaFleur County Spiro thing, Spiro Panama, but whatever. So tell me, you've already given me some great advice, on here, stuff that you haven't told me before. I learn something from you every time I'm around. It may
You
not
can
be,
talk about that advice.
yeah, it may not be, it may be what not to do sometimes. No, but what's the best piece of advice you've ever received, and maybe what kind of advice do you give to parents usually?
The best piece of advice.
I like what you said earlier. I thought that was really good about taking care of yourself, and um,
The Wanda had us do this exercise. We were in this group, and Wanda had us do this exercise the other day. She's like, what would you tell another parent? And if they were in, your similar situation. And I really was challenged by that, because I don't know that the advice I don't like lately, quite honestly, is you have to take care of yourself. maybe the bigger calling is that we have to take care of each other. And if you see a dad who's struggling, maybe he's not capable of doing self-care right now. Maybe this is a time for you to step in. And so I hope we'll be more observant of parents' lives and step in with some grace. You know, somebody who's so good at doing that is Heather Pike. Heather Pike just intuits when you need a cheer me up call. You know, I think some of us need less casseroles and less happy faces on Facebook. And we need instead somebody who will just sit and listen to us and do it not in judgment. Because all of these experiences of parenting have some really sorrowful moments and some regrets and things like that.
Yeah, you say that. I get phone calls, you know, all the time, and then it'll be a mom, newly diagnosed, and she'll go on for 30 minutes, an hour,
Yep.
and she's telling me all of these things, and at the end, I get off the phone and I talk to Terry that works with me, and I say she just needed somebody to talk to.
That's right.
More than anything, she called for advice, but she really needed somebody to listen, and that's.
And a lot of times we'll hear parents say things like, "You have no idea how hard this is. Nobody gets how hard this is." And I think what they're trying to say is, I still don't understand why this is this hard. I still don't understand how my life ended up this way.
Yeah, and I think it takes a long time to realize that the thing you don't need to say is, "Oh, I do understand. I do. I've been through this." They don't want to hear that.
Or you think that's bad? Let me tell you what I went through. I mean, that's not helpful.
Yeah, the one-uppers. That's not it, because everybody goes through things differently. Everybody handles things differently. You just nod and say, "You're right," and yeah. Well, that's all I've got. I want to say, you are one of the most amazing advocates I have met along the way. And I mean that sincerely. And I say that because without you, I'd probably still be stuck in autism world. I'd probably still be stuck in Panama, Oklahoma, trying to figure out what to do with my son. But because for some reason you saw something in me and allowed me to join the Partners in Policymaking, I want to say thank you. I'm sitting here in my office in Poto, Oklahoma. It is my
federal grant.
It is my office. It is a federal grant that pays for this, and it is because of you that I sit here partly.
Well, let me say this. You guys raised me. I really was clueless and heartbroken and way too opinionated and all that. And because I have walked with you guys now through 10 sessions of partners, I'm a better mom and I'm a better advocate.
With that,
we can call Henry in. He's not going to have that opinion, but in my delusions, I believe that.
or any of your kids.
No, the one on the roof is really kind of crabby right now.
Probably because he's on the roof.
Yeah, and it's 112.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I thank you, and
thank you, Betty. Oh, wait a minute. Let me say how to enroll in partners.
Absolutely. Go for it.
Okay. So partners starts every fall of every year. And again, it's 1 weekend a month through May. It's usually held in Oklahoma City. We are moving to have some of our classes online. And so we really encourage you to apply. You can apply by calling the Oklahoma Developmental Disabilities Council, or you can go to our website, which is okddc.ok.gov. And we're also on Facebook under Oklahoma Partners in Policymaking. It's a page.
All right.